So Julian has a friend at school, and his friend has a little sister. She's in kindergarten. And her teachers were just a little concerned about some of her reading, so they were going through the sounds with her, the G and the J sounds, one by one. And so they're going through the sounds of G and J, and it was just confusing. And finally just said, "This is stupid. Who made this up?" And she pushed it away. A little crazy. Yeah, be a revolutionary. Doesn't matter what age you are. When you recognize something is stupid, like the English language, just reject it. Actually, what inspired me about for this talk was another somewhat young man, is Ronan Farrow. Who's familiar with Ronan Farrow? Well, he's not doing a good job publicizing himself. He's Mia Farrow's son, one of her many sons. He's 26 now, very bright guy, went to college at like 16, became a Rhodes Scholar, worked for the UN. So now he's at ripe old age of 26, and he started his own news show. But what caught my attention was that he was on NPR. NPR rated one of his graduation speeches as one of the best ever. So I was listening to it. And by the way, just as a sidetrack, about stretching ourselves, trying something new, I got on Twitter last year for the first time. It was totally different than Facebook. But what I do on Twitter, I do it very differently. I don't follow people I know. I follow all sorts of, I spent a long time following agnostic and atheists, conspiracy theorists. I don't stay. I stay a few months, read stuff, and then I try something new. It's a wonderful way to see what's out there and explore all these different ideas of people. I really enjoy it. It expands my horizons. So anyways, I follow him on Twitter, and he posted his speech. And when I listened to it, wasn't that inspiring to me. There's a high expectation when NPR says it's one of the best ever. And I thought, well, no, it didn't do much for me. And yet what I found was I was thinking about it a lot. I thought, well, it did do something to me. He starts off his speech with a story of his flight to the college. He's on the plane, and the flight attendant says, "Please turn off your mobile device. You can't have it on during takeoff and landing." And she walks on, and he stays on his mobile device. And then he said, well, the old woman next to me, and I'm thinking, I bet he thinks I'm an old woman. He's 26. But the old woman next to me she said to turn that off. And he said she was visibly upset. And he said, I'm not going to turn it off. That's just a stupid rule. He said, do you know that if that's all it took to take down a plane, you'd have hijackers all over the place just turning on their cell phones. He said, and that in other countries don't have this rule. It doesn't make sense. There's no research that it impacts. So I don't follow rules that don't make sense. And she visibly just kept getting upset. And he just said, well, why is it so important for you to conform to to some rule, just for the sake of a rule? And I remember just sort of being shook up a little bit by that, because I was probably the age of the old woman next to him, but also sort of his abruptness, like, you're supposed to be polite and respectful. But his whole speech then became about that it was the job of the youth to challenge, to not accept the status quo of the world around us, to take that vitality and that energy and not be willing to accept the world as it's been given to you, but to create a new world. And what we all know is that youth has nothing to do with biological age. The Staleys are a perfect example of that, always learning and participating and growing. There is no age to youth. What youth is always this willingness to try new things. My mother's always been an inspiration. When she was in her mid-50s, she never skied before, took herself to a ski resort, took lessons, learned how to ski, and the next thing I knew, she had met some man who took her to the Alps, and she was skiing in the Alps. There is no limits except in our minds, right? We want to be fully alive, and that's sort of this revolutionary energy. Now, the revolutionary energy also we think of as overthrowing something that isn't working, to change something. And where we want to begin, obviously, is inwardly. We want to overthrow the limitations in our self. We want to overthrow all that negative thinking. Last week, I spent a lot of the talk was generally about going into our heart and transmuting the negative or the limiting stuff in our hearts through emotion and feeling. But there's techniques that we can do all day long. One of the things we want to move past is the idea that we have to have these negative limiting thoughts throughout the day. We want to change our self-talk. Let's just annihilate that. Let's just get rid of negative self-talk. What good does that do us? And And then the question is that possible? And that's been an interesting exploration, because there's a lot of people who say, well, we are living in a world with duality. That's what this world is, the negative, the dark, and the light. And Jesus said the poor will always be with us. As long as we are in this three-dimensional world, we'll have dark and light. And then you have the New Thought movement, which is all about moving into the light, to becoming more positive. So I've been with this whole, is it possible to move to more light? Is it possible to get rid of the negative? And I don't think it's getting rid of the negative. It's transmuting it, changing it, and to say it's already happened. It's already been happening, and we want to move more. So one of the examples I use is near-death experiences. In the Middle Ages, near-death experiences commonly were very negative. Demons and ghosts and beings, you read them and they're just like, ugh. And now we see almost the exact opposite. People assume it's going to be loving and wonderful. I was watching an Oprah Winfrey show. This was back in the 90s. And she was doing a show on near-death experiences. And a woman did share in the audience of having a negative experience, of having all this negative energy coming at her. And it was such a shock to everybody in the audience as well as Oprah, because now we just assume it's going to be positive, and the negative is an exception. So even our understanding of our relationship with God and our relationship with good, we have such higher expectations. We have evolved. I watched a TED Talk several years ago where he was showing that, yes, there's lots of poverty and in our world, but actually it's evolved. We actually are expressing more abundance and more good than we did 1,000 years ago. There's this whole thing called spiral dynamics, which is about the evolution of humanity on the planet. But it's a spiral. It revolves. So there's a feeling we don't leave the planet. We all have the same issues: politics, economics, daily tasks, being a mom. But we evolve how we are living that. We have come to a higher vibration. As one leader said, change is easy, improving is the hard part. And that's what we want to do. We don't want to just change for change's sake. We want to improve. So one of the things I'm doing this summer is we're having a book group on Tuesday nights, Testimony of Light, and meditation on Thursday. And the reason why I'm doing that is because it's to stretch us. I love reading about near-death experiences because I was inspired by the vision that I said when I was a kid, the Lord's Prayer, that the kingdom of heaven shall be on earth. And so the question I always was asking, well, what's the kingdom of heaven look like? I want to know not what just one individual enlightened person looks like, but I want it, but I didn't, just to have the idea of one enlightened person is one thing, but what would it be like to have a whole world that's enlightened? So I read these near-death experiences, and my favorite is chapter 43 in the autobiography of a yogi, because his guru comes back and explains not just what one experience is like, but he explains all these planets and dimensions and all the different levels at the subtle level, and then you move on to the causal level, and you spend thousands of years in what you're letting go of, and that we all have these three bodies: physical, subtle, and causal. And as I read it, I don't think, oh, this is what's going to happen when I die. What would it be like to move through these bodies, through this energy as a living person? It becomes a vision of what's possible. And that's what we're here to do. We're here to court a vision that seems almost impossible, but we have to nurture it. The revolution is to move to a higher plane. We need to have some sort of vision of what that higher plane is. Otherwise, we're just changing and staying the same. So the vision is to keep our mind and attention on what is possible. Is it possible to move to a higher vibration so that really dense negativity suddenly doesn't have to be there anymore? That there might be dark shadow, but not as dense, not as dark. That's what I believe is possible, and I believe that is the work of a true spiritual warrior, a revolutionary on this planet. That's what we're all about. And so we're into applying it to our life. Now here's the funny part. It's really hard. This past week I saw the middle school, they did a play, a musical talent show on Wednesday night. And they were given a musical earlier of what they were to do. And this is so Montessori, of course. The kid's like, we don't want to do this musical. It doesn't feel right. It doesn't fit us. So what are you going to do? Well, we'll write our own musical. Revolutionary spirit. It's so energizing and so fun. And then what to do. So their whole musical was about how hard it was to write this new musical. And they didn't know what to do, and so they had different bits throughout the whole thing and a little talent show in it. And my favorite part was they all came in, the cast sang from Les Miserables, Do You Hear the People Sing? Do you hear the people? Have you seen Les Miserables? That last song at the end of the first, and it's very rousing, and you get very emotional. I want to join the revolution. But the revolution failed. They almost all died. And that's what we have to remember on this journey. That we want that revolutionary spirit. We want to give ourselves to it, and it takes hard work, and it takes time. So that's, for me, the question is what do I want to give my time to? Because it's not going to happen overnight. I finished it, but I was watching The Fall of Eagles, about the fall of Germany, Austria, and Russia, all happening at the same time. What was interesting was Lenin, 30 years before that revolution, was planning the revolution. We got to get organized. It was his whole life, and he was constantly agitating and pushing. It didn't happen overnight. Our own American Revolution, it wasn't the battle. I mean, we had the war that was incredibly violent. But after the war, what is this new life, this improved world going to look like? They fought. I was watching this whole thing on John Adams. They were fighting like cats and dogs to figure out what this new system was going to be like. It wasn't just this nice, smooth. When we're from a distance, it can be very sort of, we can put it on a pedestal and think that was just this wonderful romantic. We can romanticize it. Gandhi spent 20 years in South Africa learning how to agitate from a nonviolent perspective before he ever went to India. 20 years. That's a long time to be working on an idea. So as we're all here revolutionaries. I know that. We're all doing the spiritual work. What we need to do is to continue to recognize that it is hard work, to move past these limiting habit patterns. As much as all of us do the hard work, I know we all still have these limiting habit patterns that fill our day, not fill it, but are there in our day. So we just have to work together as a community to notice what are those limiting habit patterns coming up. I'm taking a Kriya Yoga class down in San Jose, and one of the things they talk about, and I recognize in all my years of New Thought, I never heard this said, which is, it's a lot of hard work. When you meditate, you're not just relaxing, you're alert and you're working. You're working to stay awake, to stay conscious. You're moving your breath. You're staying awake and alert. It's not like I just zone out and fall asleep. You're conscious. I remember a friend of mine was saying, well, I just like to surrender because all that changing your thinking is so much hard work. And I thought, well, even surrender is hard work, because if you surrender, it's going to ask you to change. Because spirit is always evolving. Spirit can't help itself but evolve. So our role is to continually, day by day, move into alignment with spirit. Where am I in my own growth? Where is my growing edge right now? So just ask yourself right now, what is my growing edge in my life? Where am I pushing the status quo in my own life? Interiorly, where am I pushing the status quo? And where am I pushing the status quo in my exterior life? With my friends, with my family, with politics, economics, however that is for you, with the homeless and service, with a nonprofit organization, where am I pushing and saying, we need to create a better world? So as Ronan Farrow was pushing, just agitating that lady next to her, I'm sure she won't forget that. We need to be agitating ourselves. We need that constant sense of this world is not okay as it is. We don't want to get too comfortable in saying, well, I'm doing all my spiritual work and I'm feeling happy and in love, so life is good. No, this planet needs us. We need to be co-creating an entirely new planet. I believe on heaven on earth. I believe in the possibility. I love, a teacher said, the only obstacle we have is to believe it's not possible. That's the biggest obstacle we have to get through. If you believe it's possible to create heaven on earth, if you think that's an actual reality, then how much of your life are you giving to that vision, to that possibility? If we really believe that heaven on earth is possible, and we have a really beautiful idea of what heaven actually is, not just for one person, but for whole communities of diverse people, because the great thing about when you read these near-death experiences is how diverse it all is. It doesn't all look the same. What would that look like on earth? Do we believe that's possible? Is that what you are living for every day of your life? Is to create for yourself an enlightened consciousness and for the world around you a heaven on earth? And that's what it means to be a revolutionary, to stand up and say, I'm willing to stand up, I'm willing to be vocal about it. Oh yeah, I'll tell one more story about the being vocal. So last week I was talking about my shyness and my introversion, but then there was this other side of me. And it really came out in ministerial school. I had a friend who was just pushing me to speak up, like not just complain to the people closest to me, but to speak up. So I started speaking up. And my problem with ministerial school was that it was academic. It was reading a lot of books and writing a lot of papers. And my feeling was, and they were really working hard to go get accredited, and they did get accredited. And the way you do that is by becoming an academic institution. And my feeling was, is if I wanted to go to an accredited academic institution and be recognized by the culture, I would have done that. I would have gone to Berkeley or Harvard Divinity School or something that's recognized. But that's not why I was in this organization. Our organization, for me, is about discovering the truth within our own self and coming from that own interior authority. The secondary sources of what other people say are secondary. What do I know? So I was making this argument very vocally in our ministerial school that if what we value are mystics, are people who are actually awake and conscious, wouldn't we want to create a program that cultivates mysticism? So I thought our students should go and spend 6 months in a cave, and they just sort of laughed at me and thought I was crazy. Well, but that was what was interesting, was I thought what I said made total sense. And I thought I was so completely right. And nobody agreed with me. No, a few people agreed with me. But there's a lot of people most people love this accredited program. They were into the trends. Two of the main people that didn't agree with me was one who was actually on the board getting this accreditation. He was a classmate, but he was also on the board because he had gotten an architectural graduate school accredited, so he was helping us with that. He was dead set against what I was saying. And then I had another woman who we were becoming growing friends in ministerial school, but she just loved the accredited program. After we graduated, she became the dean of one of our campuses, and then she grew it really fast, and then got in the second highest position in our organization. About 4 years down the line, I got a call from both of them separately. And both of them said, Harriet, that program that you were thinking, I think you might have been right about that. We really do need something that's really developing the mystical, spiritual side far more than just writing papers. Would you think about doing that? And by that time, I was a new mom, and my revolutionary spirit had died. And that's part of what I learned. So then I started learning integral theory and started applying it and putting it on the minister's listserv. And again, there wasn't very much excitement about it. And I spent years trying to convince people. See, I didn't know yet about the revolutionary spirit taking time. And so just recently, I was invited I had left the ministers group just because I get frustrated. And then it's 5 years later. Hey, we've just started an integral ministers group. Will you come join us and participate? And so what I was advocating for happened just 5 years later. And this is what I was thinking that Ronan Farrow was missing, being 26, is that it takes time. That's what I've learned, and that's what I think we've all learned with our years of experience, that this isn't something that it's a burst of flame and then you die. It's something that we need to sustain over time because it is happening. If we've caught a vision of a possibility, it's real. It's true. And just because we speak it out and people don't always, but we need to speak it out, even if people don't get it, because what the purpose of those stories is when you speak it out, even if nobody agrees with you, it's a seed planted. It's like, maybe it seems so outside the trend, outside the norm, but as we grow, those ideas, those visions start catching on. So being a revolutionary, you may see things far faster than the people in your family. You may see things far faster than the people in your community. But speak it out anyways, even if they don't get it, because once you speak truth, the Buddha said this actually, once you speak truth, people can't forget it. You speak a new vision and it's real, people aren't going to forget it, are not going to forget it. So being a revolutionary is about doing the interior work, striving for enlightenment, believing enlightenment is possible, but it's also actively participating in creating heaven out there through our words as well as our actions. Even if it's not time for that revolutionary action. So I looked up revolution in the dictionary, and it said it's sudden. And I thought, how interesting. I just watched the whole thing with Lenin spending 30 years and Gandhi 20 years. It seems sudden, but it's years building. I looked at all the spiritual teachers that I admire, Michael Beckwith, Ken Wilber. They became famous after about 30 years of doing a lot of interior work, and now they're really well known. But it didn't start that way. They've just been doing the work day in and day out. So being a revolutionary, we're in it for the long haul, and we're constantly speaking the truth out into the world. Continue to do it. Don't stop because people don't get it. And you're going to start slowly the world is going to start changing and cultivating into this new idea. We're doing this as an individual, and we're doing this as a community. Here in Livermore, we're just going to keep talking about unconditional love, being all-inclusive, that we're all the beautiful, unique expressions of pure spirit, that we don't need to put walls up and say, you're right and I'm wrong, that it's all inclusive. We continue to hold this vibration and energy as a community. We're going to be raising the energy of the Livermore Valley, right? That's what we're here to do. We're not here just for our own personal enlightenment, but to change the valley, to change how we do things. There was just an incredible homeless summit, and I believe it's because we're raising our energy and our vibration. We're all part of it. So this week, I have to tell you, this talk title came into my head on Monday. And the amount of things, like the little girl, the kindergartner, the middle school, the integral group, I mean, it was the amount of things that showed up in my world just by being just talking about being a revolutionary. So I'm just going to ask you to do that. Just think about being a revolutionary all week and see what shows up. Just say, I'm revolutionary. I'm that revolutionary. And just see what shows up. It's so cool. So that's my invitation this week, is just to feel that revolutionary energy, be willing to allow that vitality, that dynamic energy, that visionary life to feed you, to your soul, inwardly and outwardly, and see what shows up. Y'all willing to do that? All right. I could just totally feel your energy. It's so great. Because you've all been doing this work. I know. None of you are new to this, so it's great. All right. Let's pray. Pray and play. Pray is play. So we just begin with the recognition that there truly is only one power, one life, one presence. It is infinite oceanic love. It is pure intelligence. It is beauty, harmony, grace, abundance, joy, peace. It is in, through, and as all creation, and yet never absorbed by that creation. It transcends all that we can think, taste, touch, and smell. It is beyond any phenomenal experience, and yet it is infused in all phenomenal experience. And so it is in this awareness that God is all, that we recognize that right where we are is the power and the presence and the love of God. There is no part of our being that is outside of this infinite love intelligence of the universe. All that we are, every atom and cell of our beingness, our physical body, our emotional body, our mental body, our energy body, our causal body, all of it is God. That which we call dark and that which we call light, that which we call good, that which we call bad, it is all God. This power and this presence has infused our very life from the moment we were conceived into this body temple. It has known itself, been passionately in love with itself as all of our life. Every experience, every thought is contained in this beautiful, extraordinary, infinite, oceanic love. And we feel that love right here and right now, absolutely enveloping us, enveloping all that we are, and remembering to remember who and what we are, powerful, magnificent, infinite beings of light, that our thoughts are God's thoughts, our feelings are God's feelings. And so we choose to have the vision to speak and to think and to feel in alignment with the highest vibrational frequency possible. Every moment we remember to remember, we choose and we shift our thoughts into that which is eternal, that which is real, and we let go of the temporary limits, the temporary negativity, and we allow ourselves to be anchored in the kingdom of heaven on earth now, in our bodies, in our energy, in our form, in our thoughts, in our feelings, energy of love now. And that we see from that place, we carry that out into our world. We carry that energy of infinite oceanic love outside. We stand in Starbucks and we see the beauty of God in every face that we see. We stand in line at the grocery store. We see the beauty of God in every face that we see. We go to our work, and in all our conversations, we know these are the conversations of God. These are the conversations of the kingdom of heaven. In our long to-do list, we see the kingdom of heaven there in the to-do list. We see God in everything that we are doing, that we are participating anticipating, that we are speaking, that we are feeling. We are infused with the power and the presence of God inwardly and outwardly, so there's only one thing happening. And it is from that place healing happens, transformation happens, and we truly become the kingdom of heaven on earth. It is a reality now. And I know that reality is alive and awake as us as we continue to say yes, yes, and yes yet again. So for the infinite love and power and glory of the living God that is us now, for the power that we are in the world, the leaders of light that we are now, I just say thank you, thank you, thank you, infinite and eternal one. Thank you, God. And in this deep abiding joy, I just release this word. I completely let it be, knowing that as it has been spoken, it truly is already done. And in this awareness, I invite us all to say together now, and so it is. Amen and amen.